Welcome to the funnel. My name is John Shane. I'm the president of Alignment Group. This is episode number 187 of the funnel. Best sales rep onboarding product training practices. That's a bit of a mouthful. So today I'm going to try to take a deeper dive into one of the three buckets. If you go back to some of the podcasts I've done in the past on onboarding or read some of the blogs, I talk about in the beginning stages breaking it into three categories of knowledge that a sales rep has to know, right? So it's product knowledge, second, it's company knowledge, and third, it's sales knowledge, sales training and process and methodology. Today, I'm going to take a deeper dive into that bucket of sales or product training. I'm sorry, not sales training, product training. Whatever the product or service that you're providing, this will help you build out your onboarding so they have everything they need to know to go out in the field and sell your product or service. So if you're thinking about taking notes, don't bother. Just head on over to alignment-group.com/thefunnel and subscribe, and we'll send you the show notes. Today, you will learn meaningful conversations. What does that have to do with product or services? I will tell you the value proposition, the ideal prospect, product, and then competitors. So let's start with meaningful conversations. And why am I bringing that up with product training? Shouldn't that be under sales training? And yes, and probably when I do the sales training, I'll touch on some of this as well. But I thought it prudent to start with meaningful conversations because throughout this whole process of onboarding and through your development phases, I think it's important to understand that you need to be customer centric, to focus on the customer and what they need. So in the past, break it down to something simple like a product. And I don't mean that all products are simple, but a small, maybe product where you were talking about specs. It was all about the specs. Mine's faster, better, bigger, smarter, right? And if we knew our specs or we had better specs than our competitors, we could win deals. And that was fine in its place a long time ago. Today, the conversations need to wrap around the customer and not the specs. You're trying to help them solve a problem. So understanding the problem is important on the sales side, right? And then walking through the sales process and having those meaningful conversations. Well, how do you frame the product training around meaningful conversations, around customer-centric situations? That's what I'm talking about. So when you're building out your product training portion of your onboarding, keep that in mind. Of course, you're going to tap into all of the resources available to you, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And not all of that revolves around the customer, but it's important for you to make sure that your rep is well-rounded, that they understand their conversations regarding product or service need to be in this realm. They need to be about the customer and their problem and helping them solve the problem. Now, some people might say the term value proposition is dead. I've heard that before. I don't necessarily believe it, right? I think it's an important part of the sales process, an important part of your selling. So I think, again, as we go through this stage of training on the product, we want to make sure that we address the value prop in the beginning, or we understand the value prop. And even before you start the sales training or combed into this, you start the process of them, the sales reps, understanding the value prop. What is your unique value proposition? How you differ, okay? What makes you, your company, and you, and your products and services better? This helps you engage in those meaningful conversations. So if we go back to meaningful conversations, right, the value prop helps them understand that. Now, I believe when you're training, it's better to get them involved than do a data dump, right? Sit in a classroom or sit in a conference room, fire up the PowerPoint, sit at a desk, and just spew out stuff at them all day. That had its time and place, but I think you're better served by getting them involved. So at this point, they're with your company. They went through the interview process. Hopefully, they've done some homework on who you are. They've had some of the basic training on the company and history, et cetera, et cetera. So help them develop the value prop. You know your company's unique value proposition. You know the industry, the business, and the needs. You know how to have that meaningful conversation, but you want to put them in a position where they can do that. So one of the ways is going through a value proposition exercise. So I take reps through that all the time. It creates a deeper understanding for them. If you just spit it out, it's words. They don't get it. But if you have them help them develop the value prop and it lines up, that's perfect. Obviously, they're going to make some mistakes as they think their way through this. But at the end of it, you want them to come to the conclusion that this is our unique value proposition, the one that the company has set forth, the one that the company has created to create those deeper, more meaningful conversations. So again, what does this have to do with product? You're setting the table. You're building your product training and your services training around the value proposition, around the conversations, the meaningful conversations. So as you begin to move into product, they will understand that. Okay? So we're going to talk about one more thing before we talk about product, and we're going to talk about the ideal prospect. Why do they need to know that? Again, what industry are they selling to? Who are the buyer personas? The ideal prospect. They may have an idea coming in because they did some research on your company. You might have given them some marketing material, and this is who we sell to. But a deeper dive into the buyer persona, the industry, and the ideal prospect. And what's the difference between a buyer persona? The buyer persona touches on the human side of it. Who is this person? What demographic do they fall into? Man or woman? What do they like? What don't they like? What's their age range? What do they do on the weekend? Buyer persona really takes in all of those aspects, the human side of the buyer. The ideal prospect kind of marries to that and says, okay, this is the business side of it. This is the role they play in the company. This is what the team looks like. This is the ideal company size, the revenue, the number of employees. Maybe it's a geographic location where they fit, or an industry type, right? A vertical, or different types of industries. So it marries the two together. We take them through the exercise of building out the ideal prospect and doing a little research on the industry, a little research on the buyer persona. It's not just here it is. Okay, so now you have all of this stuff, right? You know that it's about meaningful conversations. You're building your product training around that. You're taking them through a value prop exercise. And again, you might say, well, this is all part of the sales process, sales methodology and process. Yes, it is, but all this blends together. It's not just three separate buckets. They're not silos. So if we're talking about a really good product or service that we offer, we need to know what the buyer's looking for, what industries they come from, what that ideal prospect looks like. Why is that important? Because as we begin to teach the product or service, we're having conversations about what's important to the buyer, what's important to the prospect, what's important to the customer. As you're training on that, they're building knowledge that they can transfer in their conversations in the field. I hope that makes sense to you, because I think all too often we sort of separate the three and say, okay, this is how we do our sales training, this is how we do the training on the company, and here's the specs on the product. This is what we do, this is what we provide, this is what people like, this is what works. Stay away from this part doesn't work so well. Okay, that's great. But if you keep it separate, you don't wrap it around the customer, and it's not meaningful to the customer, you're missing something. You're just dumping data about the product, and they're left to try to figure it out in the field as they go along and bump along and bang their head against the wall. So you can help them by drawing on your experience, by drawing on other people's experience, by drawing on your company's growth and development and historical data to build out a training program on the product that's very keen on the customer desire, the customer need. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the product. Okay, I'm going to tell you that from a product perspective, okay, there should be, in most companies, there's a lot of information out there. everything from brochures to videos to audio, PowerPoint presentations, maybe representatives from maybe you're a value-added reseller, maybe you're an agency or something like that, and you're selling another product. So there's somebody there to help you learn the product. So a couple things I'm going to say about that. If you're bringing outside resources from the manufacturer, make sure that they understand what they're talking about. Make sure that they're good at training and they know the product. If they don't bother. Okay, and I'm not picking on channel reps. I'm not picking on these, what they call district sales managers, whatever. Some of them are really good at that. Others, they're not interested in it or they're not very good at it. They data dump PowerPoints in a conference room, and sometimes sales reps will say, yeah, it was fine, it was great, they helped, when they really didn't. Or they'll complain and be like, why am I wasting my time with this person who doesn't know their product or service? So make sure you vet that person. What's your plan to train on the product? Okay, we have new reps coming into our company. We need your help in training on the product or service. How are you going to do that? And don't just say, well, I have PowerPoints and videos I can show you. Great. Why don't we do this? Why don't we lay out a curriculum? What would that look like if you were to come in here and train, or you were to do it over a series of meetings? Let's say GoToMeeting or something like that. What would that look like? Well, I don't know. I do this and I do that. Okay, let's talk about that. You're peeling back the layers with them. Show me the presentations. Show me the videos. Show me what you're going to show them and how you're going to train them on it. What problems does this solve for the customers? How can we dig deep into the questions that customers are going to ask and the questions we're going to ask them about your product? What do you find in this industry? What works with this ideal prospect? Show me that. And if they can't show you that, don't bother. Don't waste your time. Do it yourself. Now, that sucks because that's a lot of work. But it's better than misinformation. So a lot of times those guys misfire. And when they misfire, it affects your reps. So I wouldn't do that. Okay? The next thing is context, right? All your conversations about product need to be in the context of the buyer, need to be in the context of the customer. I wouldn't want it to be antiseptic. Here's the product specs, bang, bang, bang. Here's what it does, bang, bang, bang. These are the problems it solves. Great. Give me an example. And don't give me Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. Okay? Everybody uses sort of the fake names. Or they pick some television show and they pick characters from a show and they make it up. Give me some real life situations. This happened in the field. This is what worked and this is why it worked in this industry. And it happened again over here. It was slightly different, but this is what worked. And this is how the product fit. And here's the specs. And this is what you should be driving after. Okay, take advantage of all of the available tools. And what I mean by available tools, simple. Simple, right? The videos, the presentations, the documentation. But don't just hand it to them or throw somebody in a room with them. Build out the curriculum. Here's the product. Here's the 20 videos that the provider, that the manufacturer provides us. But out of these 20 videos, we feel, based on how we want you to learn and what we want you to do, these 5 are the best. And this is the order in which you're going to go through them. And here's how we're going to test it out. And here's what we're going to have you work on internally with folks at our company. So you're taking the product and you're dissecting it in a way that matches the buyer's need or the customer need or the customer conversation. So you're looking at it purely through the lens of the customer, and then you're delivering the training to the rep that way. And you're pulling from all the available tools. So the available tools are simple. Whoever's providing you the product, right? The original man, if you're a reseller, and the specs, or maybe it's internal with your company, there are people in your company that are experts in the field with customers, dealing with their problems and helping them solve them. They might be support personnel. That's great. Get the rep in front of these people. And don't just say, hey, this person really knows their stuff. I'm going to have you spend a day. And they're like, what? Their role isn't to train reps, so they don't know how to do that. So again, part of the onboarding and building out the onboarding is to get with those people. Extract from them what they do and how they do it. Help them build out a conversation or a curriculum or a meeting that they can deliver and feel comfortable about. So internal, external, you're vetting the person. You're pulling in all the product information. You're going through the material yourself. You're deciding what works and what doesn't work. Then you're building on that. So you're taking advantage of all the available tools, but you're putting something unique together for your company. Now, I can hear the sighs because I've done this, and people are like, "You're kidding me, right?" No, I'm not. My question to you is, do you want a higher success rate? That means I bring people in the door, more of them succeed than fail because I put a really good hiring process and a really good onboarding process. Do I want that? Yes. Do I want revenue faster? Yes. Okay. So this is the pathway. You hire the right people, then you bring them along the right way. You don't just throw PowerPoints and videos and send them in a room somewhere. It doesn't work. And I would give you this advice. Find out how they learn. I'm visual and I like doing. Okay? You get you get a kid's toy, right? Example, one of my kids got a robot a couple years ago or last year for Christmas. And you had to put it together. There was a lot of pieces. Okay? I'm not reading the instructions and going through I'm doing that, but I also have the box, the huge box with a picture of the completed robot, and I'm looking at it as I'm putting it together. So that's how I learn. Some people it's audio, right? They sit and they can listen. Pen to paper, hearing, watching, best way to do it. Get them involved. If it's product that's hard, get them involved in the product. And have them regurgitate back to you in a meeting or a demonstration type format, some format where they're delivering something on the product back to a group of people in your company and you're grading them on that. That's money. So you're taking advantage of everything. You're building out the value prop. You're laying out the meaningful conversation. You're looking at it through the lens of the customer, and you're training them on the product. You're taking advantage of any outside resources you have, video, audio, anything, and you're building out a curriculum. And then at the end of that, and you're testing them the whole way. You should be testing them the whole way. At the end of that, the big final test is they have to present to you in a way that makes sense through that customer lens. And they have to pass that, whatever scenario you guys lay out. And I would take a real life scenario that you've just been through and won and put them through that. Don't just make something up. Okay, next we're going to talk about competitors. I think it's important for them to know who they're competing with. Who are the companies? How are they laid out? Are they regional, national? How are they, their sort of org chart? That's important, right? To know who their competitors are. I would make it so they do the research. You have the information on the competitors, but you make them do some research. You make them do some homework. You make them come back to you with information about the competitor. It's all there. It's free. Just go on the internet. They can find it. And then you want to assess their knowledge of the competitor. There's nothing like getting in a real deal and learning about the competitor. You will learn a lot. You start asking questions. And the prospect shares. But do your best in this position to have them understand the competition and who they are. So you lay out the list, you know the information, but you make them do some research. You give them some homework. You bring in people who are experts with a competitor. Maybe a rep who just won a huge deal against the competitor, and let them explain how they beat the competitor, the strengths and weaknesses of that competitor. Strengths are important. You need to know how they're going to come at you. You need to know what they're going to do. You also need to know their weaknesses so you can expose them. And the only way to do that is to build the curriculum around that. I hope this helps you build out your training program for product. You can subscribe to The Funnel at alignment-group.com/thefunnel. You can find us on social media, Facebook, at Shay John R is my Twitter handle, LinkedIn, Google+. Contact me, Jay Shay, at alignment-group.com. Again, stop by the website. We have some pretty cool stuff there, as well as the podcast and the blog. There's some downloadable things you can grab that might help you in your sales management, sales ownership adventure. So until next time, keep filling the funnel.